Hey everyone, Andrew here, bringing you another video, and today we're going to be doing my Andrew Cutter, a look at the new 52 thus far. Now see, with DC Comics and their new 52, we're getting into the 9th month. We're actually quite a bit into the new 52. A lot of the first story arcs are finishing up, are already done, and the trades are coming out. I figured what would be a good idea is to actually sit down with you guys and go over the new 52 and grade it, to give it a ranking for each individual comic series. So what I did is I fished out some of the last issues from each series, maybe an issue 7 here, or issue 8 here, or issue 9 here. And what I will do is actually take each series that I've read and quickly give you guys a grade on it, letting you guys know what comics are good and what comics are bad, what comics are worth picking up, what comics you might want to avoid. And at the end of it, I'll give you a quick look into what I think are the top 5 comics of the new 52. Now, there are a few rules when it comes down to this. First and foremost is that I will not be talking about any of the second wave comics. Seeing that there's only been one issue, it's really hard to decide whether or not you should jump on the bandwagon for a comic when there's only been one issue. A first issue can be horrible and the series can be amazing, or vice versa. The first issue can be amazing and the series be horrible. Second is I will not be talking about any of the comics that have been canceled thus far. So stuff like OMAC or Static or Men of War, comics that have been around since the start of the New 52, but got canceled around issue number 8, I won't be talking about. Why? Well, because we don't have them anymore. I will be talking about some of the comics that I have read up to issue number 6 or 7 and then dropped. But I'm only going to give you my perspective of that comic up until that point. And lastly, I have not collected every single comic from the New 52, but I have collected a good majority. So hopefully I'll be able to hit every single comic that you guys want me to hit, outside of stuff like Legion of Superheroes or Frankenstein Agent of Shade, which are some of the few comics that I haven't even touched. So, with that said, let's actually jump into the review of the New 52. We have a lot of comics to go through. And basically what I'll do is I'll just give it a ranking, 1 through 5, 5 being the best, 1 being the worst, and then I'll give you a brief description on what I like or what I don't like, or just on a whole, the feeling of the comic. So, with that said, let's get things started. First and foremost, let's go for Justice League. Justice League, I'm going to give on a whole a 4 out of 5. The comic is good, is tantalizing to the eyes with great art, and the story and the writing is pretty good. I feel as though they're playing it safe with a few things here and there, and that's why I'm not necessarily going to give it a 5 out of 5. Also, the second story arc is kind of taking some time to start back up. After we got the first story arc, we got 2 issues in between to kind of the filler issues, and then we're starting the second story arc, so it's kind of slow when it comes down to that. But besides that, Justice League is what it is supposed to be. It is basically big explosions, big action, fun character interactions, and fun stories. It's not something to take overly analyze it or to go too in depth about the story. It is what it is. So I'll give it a 4 out of 5. Going into Justice League International, I am going to be giving this a 3.5 out of 5. Justice League International is some fun characters, some great art, and it does have good character interactions. The only thing I have to say that is weak about this comic is the story, that it just has been really not that good. The first story arc has been okay with Parallax, but it was just okay. So while we do have good character interactions, a good roster, and a good story, a good art, the story itself needs a little bit of work. But 3.5 out of 5 stars. As you can see, I'm just kind of going through these real quick. Wonder Woman, I'm going to give it a 5 out of 5 stars. This is a great interpretation of Wonder Woman. There's many of the qualities and elements of Wonder Woman that we've seen previously, and they are taken and kind of updated and modified slightly in here. I think this is a Wonder Woman that will be a little bit more, how should I say, easy to access for some new readers. And it's a Wonder Woman that embraces her Greek mythology aspect, very much like the Greg Rucka or George Perez Wonder Woman did. I like the new interpretations of the Greek gods, with the exception of maybe Ares and Poseidon. And the art is absolutely stunning. The story is a little bit different from a five-story arc or 5-issue story arc. It's more of a big epic that's going to take some time to tell. But honestly, has been some of the best of the new 52. Wonder Woman's a bit different, but she's still recognizable enough, and it has great writing to it. It tries some bold moves, especially with the Amazons, and you know what? I like bold moves. It really spices things up. So 5 out of 5 for Wonder Woman. Jumping into Green Lantern, just playing Green Lantern. Green Lantern has been a 4 out of 5. It has been a solid series with solid writing, and this is something that we're going to see a trend with the Jeff Johns comics, is that it is solid in every aspect. It has good writing, good characterization, and good art. What I like about this series is I like using Sinestro. I like to see him as kind of an anti-hero. The relationship between him and Hal Jordan is nice. And I like to see that we're also getting into the stuff with the Indigo Tribe, and there seems to be something bigger planned. Uh, Bad is that it feels a little slow, just a little, and it feels as though Jeff Johns is kind of suffering from one of his few weaknesses, which is big build-up but small payoff. The first story arc had big build-up, but the payoff really wasn't as good as it was supposed to be. But still 4 out of 5, and something I think Green Lantern fans will really enjoy. Next is Aquaman. Aquaman, I'm also going to give a 4 out of 5. It has been a very good, strong series, which has really poked fun at Aquaman, but at the same time showed us how badass Aquaman is. Um, and it really has started to kind of expand the universe of Aquaman, particularly with the current story arc with the Others, which deals with a team that Aquaman was on before he was actually on the Justice League. The dynamic between Mira and Aquaman is great in here. The only bad I can say is how Jeff Johns writes this is it makes it feel as though each issue is a little shorter than it should be. That's not necessarily the case, but I think that's something that does irk at me a bit. But besides that, like everything else Jeff has been pulling out for the new 52, this is a 4 out of 5. It's a good thing and definitely worth picking up. Moving on to Flash. Flash, I am going to give a 5 out of 5. Flash has been doing everything that I wanted it to do. One is it has started a new story with a new villain and kind of gave us a good introduction into the Flash's world with the first 5 issues. Then it is introducing each Flash villain as kind of a villain of the week. Uh, over a big story. So Flash has to get from point A to point B, but along the way he's going to encounter Gorilla Grodd, Weather Wizard, Turbine, and Captain Cold. It has absolutely great storytelling, great pacing, and great reintroduction to the Flash world, which is something that definitely needed to be done with Barry Allen starring in this comic. Barry has been well written, and the art has been absolutely fantastic. Flash, definitely one of the best of the new 52, and definitely something worth picking up. 5 out of 5. The Savage Hawkman. Savage Hawkman, I'm going to give a 2 out of 5, which pains me because Hawkman is one of my favorite DC characters. What I do like about this series is that they're trying to take Hawkman in a different direction and trying to make him a little bit more of a deeper character in some sense. You know, he's a little bit more tragic in this than he was in the previous comics, which is kind of ironic because he died and got reincarnated a million times. And he's kind of a solo act in this, so they're trying to take it in a different direction, which I commemorate. I also like the nth metal and how it's playing out as is part of him in that he actually has it as an armor, and his new look is great. The problem is that, well, to me, Hawkman is a cross between Wolverine and Indiana Jones, and this Hawkman really hasn't been doing anything. Actually, it wasn't until the most recent issues that he started to actually start kicking ass. Like when he went up against the Gentleman Ghost, he really didn't do anything. He didn't slash, he didn't pound. I mean, I want my gruesome aggressiveness from Hawkman, and I didn't get it from this. Um, so we'll see where it goes from here, but it's going to be a 2 out of 5. Um, Coming up next is a Green Arrow, which is going to be a 2.5 out of 5. Green Arrow's start was pretty good. Um, Was it the best? No, but I don't think it was as good as everyone said it was. It wasn't as bad as everyone said it was. Green Arrow started off good. The new story arc hasn't been quite as good. I think the thing that's been hurting Green Arrow the most is the fact that we have not been having familiar villains at all. And in addition to that, Ollie really hasn't had much of a character. He's kind of just been a blank slate. A blank, roguish, swashbuckling slate, but a blank slate nonetheless. Uh, it's had its high points, but it's had more low points than anything. So Green Arrow, I'm going to give a 2.5 out of 5. Now on to Captain Atom, which I've only read the first 5 issues, so I can only comment up to the first 5 issues. A Captain Atom, I'm also going to give a 2.5 out of 5 stars. I like the approach that they're doing with Captain Atom. I like the fact that the story is building up with each issue. And I also like the art a lot. And I like the fact that Captain Atom isn't Dr. Manhattan. He is his own person. He has his own personality. The two things that bother me is I think Captain Atom is way too powerful, and the story pacing is way too slow. The first issue just felt so weak, but then as we kept going, it kept getting better and better. So I think the pacing is what really hurts us the most. It's just very slow pacing. That and I don't feel as though Captain Atom has a very recognizable rogue gallery, and I don't think there's any attempt to really build a rogue gallery with this. So we'll see where it goes, but I'm going to give this also a 2.5. Moving on, the Fury of Firestorm, the Nuclear Man. I'm going to give this a 3.5 out of 5 stars. The series has been pretty good. Gal Simone has since left it, and I think she contributed to a lot of what made this fun with the dialogue, particularly the thing that made the one bit of dialogue that really made it for me with this comic is when, this whole group of people get blown up, and Ronnie's standing there, and he's like, dude, we're breathing in the dead people. This is freaking me out, and it was really powerful thing to say. But the dialogue was pretty good. The story is good, and I like the direction that they're taking with the firestorms. I particularly like how there's these rogue firestorms flying around. Weakness. Um, I feel as though the story's a little jumpy. We get from, oh, we're on the run to, oh, now we're working with this person. Oh, we're now fighting with these people. Oh, now we're separated. I think it's a little too jumpy and it doesn't quite have its footing yet. But besides that, I have been enjoying Fury of Firestorm, and I do recommend it. 3.5 out of 5. Now we're jumping into the Superman family. Superman, I will give a 3 out of 5. A lot of people have disliked this series. I have not. See, what I like about this series, I think they have a good voice for Superman, and I think they have great um, art for the comic. The art is great, and there was actually some pretty decent fight scenes in this. What bothers me is the fact that they try too hard to change Superman, and I'm not talking about the aesthetic look, like the costume. I'm talking about the way the stories are being told. I think they're trying too hard to change Superman and be revolutionary with him, and where you don't need to change him. I would have been happy with the first story arc with him dealing with Lex Luthor. Why not? I think with the new 52, you have to be bold, but at the same time, you have to play it safe sometimes. And I think with Superman, you should play it safe in the early going. So I think the biggest problem is they just tried to go too far off of what Superman was, like with the aliens, or like what they're doing right now. Although Hellspawn is not a bad villain, I think he's actually a fun villain. But like I said, first story arc should have been about Lex Luthor and Superman. So 3 out of 5. Not bad, but not terribly good either. I think Superman fans will be disappointed. Action Comics. Action Comics, I'm going to also give it 3.5 out of 5. No, yeah, 3 out of 5. Not 3.5, 3 out of 5. Action Comics is this. At times, Action Comics is really great storytelling, some good ideas, and really unique, interesting stuff. At other times, it has really choppy dialogue and some silly ideas. It's a bunch of up and downs. Stuff I like. I like the new approach to Superman's origin, and I like the incorporation of Brainiac in the first story arc. I like how Superman starts off in a smaller position and eventually builds himself up. What I don't like is the dialogue, like I said, is very choppy, and at the same time, what I don't like is like the changes they made to Brainiac, making him a centipede, or making Lex Luthor super intelligent, so intelligent that no one understands him, kind of thing. That worked in Superman Red Sun, but I don't think it works so much in Action Comics. So yeah, 3 out of 5 for Action Comics also. Next on the Superman family is Supergirl, which I am going to give boldly a 4 out of 5. A lot of people may disagree with me on this, but I'm going to say Supergirl has been a really good series thus far. It's taken the old elements of the Superman universe with the Kryptonian elements and really have expanded on them and created some great villains and great things for Supergirl to go against. What makes Supergirl work so much as a comic isn't necessarily the villains or the stories that are being told, but rather the journey that Kara is taking. She still doesn't know how to speak English, and that's actually kind of realistic. But she has gone through quite a bit of a journey, and it's a non-stop journey. And we've also seen some great villains from Rain to Mr. Tycho to Silver Banshee, who I don't think is actually going to be a villain per se, but still, really good storytelling. It starts off pretty weak, but it builds up really good. And like I said, they have a good inner voice for Kara. Last of the Superman family is Superboy. Superboy, I'm going to give it 2.5 out of 5 stars. Like Action Comics, it has its ups and downs. In the very beginning, it was better than it was later on. I think what really hurts Superboy more than anything is it tie-ins with Legion Lost and with more notably with Teen Titans. I think there was it's kind of funny in the DC universe. A lot of people are complaining about the lack of cohesion, the lack of interaction with the DC universe. I think Superboy has way too much interaction. I think he crosses over with Teen Titans and with like right now with the culling with Legion Lost a little too much. I think it hurts the story on the whole. This is being used more to tell a grander story than it is to tell its own story. So, like I said, I'm going to give this 2.5 out of 5. There's some stuff I do like that they change about Superboy, but the storytelling is just overall weak. Moving on, we have Justice League Dark. Justice League Dark, I'm going to give it 3.5 out of 5. I didn't expect myself to like this comic, but it really is coming off, well, fun. It is basically, it's not like the Justice League at all. The Justice League name in there is just to attract people to the comic, but it is basically a magical superhero team. And we have people on there like Zatanna, Deadman, Constantine, characters that really work well together because they don't work well together. That makes sense. There's a lot of bickering and snipping at each other that is fun to read. What makes this even more fun is the fact that it is magical based. So we get to explore a very unique and quickly growing aspect of the DC universe. The magical world in the DCU is growing quite a bit, and I like that. I like we have the science world and we have the magic world, and that they're respecting both worlds. The only thing I don't like is I think I would have made a few changes to the team, like Shade the Changeman. I think he's leaving, which is fine with me because he was interesting sometimes, but he really wasn't utilized to his fullest potential. I would like to see someone like Dr. Fate on it, but although I think Dr. Fate's going to be on Earth too. Um, I would like to see a few more magic users that I'm familiar with. But besides that, Justice League Dark has been a surprise and pretty damn fun, and I recommend picking it up. Um, so, moving on, we have Deathstroke. Deathstroke, I am going to give also a 3.5 out of 5. More for the Kyle Higgins stuff than anything. I like how Kyle Higgins kind of roots Deathstroke in reality. Kind of makes Deathstroke have his own tone. He's no longer just a villain. He's more like the Punisher than anything. Um, and I also like the action scenes in here too. The art is pretty good too. What I don't like is I don't like how Deathstroke is. Well, I also like how they're dealing with Deathstroke's past too. What I don't like is I don't like Deathstroke's. I don't know. I feel as though certain story elements have been dropped, like his hand getting really shaky. I think that was dropped, and suddenly it doesn't really much matter anymore. Who betraying Deathstroke, I think's been dropped, and it really doesn't much matter anymore. Um, I think also Deathstroke has tried too hard to make himself a badass. What made Deathstroke a badass is him being a badass, doing something. Action speaks louder than words. But I thoroughly enjoyed this series. The Rob Liefeld has taken the Rob Liefeld. Rob Liefeld has taken over, and while he hasn't offended me yet, he hasn't impressed me yet either. So I'll give him a chance, but we'll see where it goes from here. 3.5. On to well. Actually, first, I want to take a moment to talk about DC Universe Presents. I actually don't have the comic on me because it's still in my box. It's the one comic I actually forgot to grab. Silly me. DC Universe Presents has been, on a whole, a good series. Although I haven't picked up all of it, what it really has done is it allows people to get into the DCU, but without having to commit to a comic. The first story arc was Deadman, the second story arc was the Challenges of the Unknown, which is where I jumped on, and the third story arc is going to be Vandal Savage. And then the fourth one is going to be a one-shot of Kid Flash. So it really does allow people to get into the DCU without actually having to go out of their way to get into the DCU, like subscribing to a comic. They could be like, wow, I want to read about Deadman. I'll just pick up these 6 issues and I'll be good. So DC Universe Presents, I'm going to give it 4.5 out of 5 stars. More for the concept than the actual stories, although the stories have been good too. So, sorry I didn't have that on hand. I forgot. Moving on, Swamp Thing. Swamp Thing, I'm going to give, no surprise here, a 5 out of 5. Swamp Thing has been a stellar series, one of which I didn't even think I was going to like, but it blew me away of how good this is. It's not your typical comic book where it's superhero versus supervillain. This is very much a horror comic with it's a journey of an individual, Alec Holland. Really great storytelling, really great art, and great approach, and it just on a whole is great. There's nothing bad to say about this. One of the best of the new 52. Demonites, I am going to give a 3.75 out of 5. Demonites has been fun because it's been a sword and sorcery, D&D, almost World of Warcraft-esque like comic. It even starts off like most of my D&D campaigns. The characters are fun and unique. The situations that they put in are fun and unique, and the storytelling is really fun. The only bad I can say about this is the fact that the first story arc was a little too long. A little too long. But besides that, I really have been thoroughly enjoying Demonites, and I think it's something everyone should pick up. Especially if you're into that fantasy, sword and sorcery, Dungeons and Dragons like feel. Moving on is I, Vampire. I, Vampire, I am also going to give a 3.75. This is a comic everyone was like, oh, it's just going to be a Twilight comic. And you know what? I was one of them. But my mission in the new DC 52 was to try almost everything I could. And I tried I, Vampire, and this comic is just right up my alley. It is gruesome storytelling with dark, gritty tone to it. It takes the vampire mythology and really expands on it. If I could equate this to anything, it feels a lot like the earlier seasons of Angel. If you know what Angel is, Angel from Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Really good storytelling. It had a big crossover with Justice League Dark and kind of Batman, and it was just really good. I, Vampire, if you're looking for a good vampire series, pick it up because it is not your Twilight vampire. This is really dark, gritty stuff that is sometimes can be uncomfortable to read, but in a good way. So, next we're going to be talking about Blue Beetle. Blue Beetle is a comic that I have probably some of my highest hopes for, and I'm going to give it a this is bold, but I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5 stars. What I like about this series is it's funny. It feels like Spider-Man in a way. You know, we have this young individual who gets these powers and he doesn't know how to deal with it, and he has no one helping him out. He has to run away from his family, and he's very much on the run, trying to do the right thing, but stumbling and falling along the way. And it is just good storytelling. Uh, the last issue hasn't been quite as good as the previous ones. I didn't really care for Stopwatch as a villain. But you know, the costume design is great. They have a great voice for Jaime. It's a bit different from the previous Blue Beetle series that Jaime was in, but really fun, really good. If you want something that's very Spider-Man-esque without being too Spider-Man, or if you want something that's a little bit lighter and a little bit more fun, pick up Blue Beetle. This has been really good, and I'm glad that I went on my way to pick it up. So 4 out of 5. Ah ha ha ha. Teen Titans. Teen Titans, I'm going to give a 3 out of 5. And the reason for that is, you know, some of the dialogue is good, some of the story is good, and even some of the character interactions is good. But I feel as though the pacing is a bit weak, and at sometimes the art can be a little I feel as though when we're going to be done with this whole culling story, and when the team is finally fully together and kind of like sit down and call themselves a team, because I don't think they can call themselves a team yet. Uh, I think it's when the stories, the comic is really going to start getting its footing, and I guess that's the biggest fault to it, other than sometimes the dialogue being off, is the fact that it has a very slow pace to it. But yeah, 3 out of 5. Teen Titans is okay. The only character that I have really not cared for is Skitter. I do like Solus and I do like Bunker, but Skitter, she really has impressed me because, well, she hasn't really done anything. Even in the recent story arc, she's been hiding. Resurrection Man. I've gotten up to issue number 7 of this and then I dropped it. Not necessarily because Resurrection Man was bad, I just don't have money. Resurrection Man, I'll give a 2.5 out of 5. It has some enjoyableness to it and an interesting concept. I think it just comes down to one thing with the Resurrection Man: execution. Like I said, fun story stuff in there. I particularly like the one where the evil villain was an old guy, but he really wasn't an old guy. And how Resurrection Man is due to die, and everyone wants him to die, but he can't die. The only thing I can say that's bad, other than the execution, is I don't like how he got his powers. But besides that, Resurrection Man is okay. 2.5 out of 5. It's really, if you're into the character, should you pick it up? So yeah. Moving on, we have Animal Man. Animal Man, I'm going to give a 4.5 out of 5. Along with Swamp Thing, this has been some of the best of the dark of the new 52, the more horror, magical aspect. Really fun storytelling. I really do like the family interaction with each other, how we are incorporating Buddy's family in there. The arc has been dynamic. The only problem I've had with Animal Man is I feel like we've been doing the same the same dance for the past few issues, where we're driving, we got to go find Swamp Thing, we're driving. Bits and things have been seeded here and there, but other than that, really good stuff. And if you pick up Swamp Thing, you definitely should consider picking up Animal Man because they go hand in hand. 4.5 out of 5 stars. I am going to review one miniseries, and only because the mini is still going on, and that will be Shade, which is going on for 12 issues, and we're on issue number 7 right now. Pick it up. It's a 4.5. Shade is a completely different comic than anything else. It's a lot slower. There's a lot of dialogue. But James Robinson is one of my favorite writers of recent years. And he really knows how to do the Shade. He really understands the Shade. He really knows how to get at the Shade. It's almost like it comes natural to him how to write this character. Like I said, it's more of a venture, a fun little side story than anything. But if you got the extra cash on your hands, pick up these issues. Pick them up. They're fun. It only lasts for 12 issues, so you don't have to worry about having to continuously be committed. So if you have a commitment problem in your relationships, don't have to worry, because, hey, Shade, it's like a one night stand. That was a bad comparison. Suicide Squad. I've gotten up to issue number 6 of this, so I can only comment up to issue number 6. Suicide Squad, I will give a 3.5 out of 5. It has been fun. It has been fun. And that's the thing. You have to go into this just having fun. The storytelling isn't the best. I don't like what they did to Amanda Waller, and I think they're severely missing out on having characters like Bane or Catman or Captain Boomerang being regulars. But, this comic really shows that, with the exception of maybe Harley Quinn and Deadshot, they're not opposed to killing off characters, seeing in almost every issue a member of the team dies. So, um, yeah, it's been okay. Like I said, go into it just wanting to have fun. That's the thing. So 3.5 out of 5. Moving on to Voodoo. Voodoo, I am going to give a 4.5 out of 5. A lot of people got into a hoorah and uproar because the first issue, Voodoo is a stripper that never shows up again. It's only in the first issue. Voodoo has some dynamic storytelling, with a lot of twists and turns. The biggest shocker was in, I think, issue number 5, but there's just so many things going on in this. It ties so nicely into the demonized stuff that's going on, and the art is absolutely beautiful. Voodoo, whichever Voodoo we're talking about, is an interesting character. who has been handled very nicely. I don't think there's much bad about this that I can talk about. If you can, again, people get all hoorah and uproar about this character was a stripper. Oh no, it's all about tantalizing the man. Really, this comic has less TNA in it than some of the other comics, and that just shows you how good it is. It takes itself seriously and it takes itself in a very mature fashion. So, Voodoo, definitely worth picking up, especially if you're looking to get something in the Demonite world. It's definitely worth getting. Grifter, I'm almost up to date on. I am going to pick up issue number 9. The only reason why I'm staying with Grifter is because of the crossover with Superman. Um, just because I'm not going to say permanently with Grifter doesn't mean it's a bad comic. I'm going to give it a 3 out of 5. Grifter started off really fun. It started off with this man on the run, doing what he can to survive. What really lost it for me was the fact when he started getting friends. I don't like Grifter having friends. But really, the man alone against the Demonites is a kind of a fun story. And I think that's really what you get from this and what you might want. Is kind of part Punisher, part Wolverine in the way that the stories are being told. Kind of a man on the run, using his military experience, kind of always on the move. I don't know if Wolverine was the best example because again, I don't read Marvel, but it's probably the best way I can describe it. So, Grifter, 3 out of 5. We're getting there. We're getting there, people. Next is Red Lanterns. Red Lanterns, I am going to give 2.75 out of 5. Um, I enjoy Red Lanterns. That's not to say Red Lanterns is incredibly good. I like the characters of Red Lanterns. And I like the fact that I get the freedom to read a story that doesn't have to be too rooted into the Earth and too rooted in Green Lantern. It's just his own thing. There's just some fun stuff in this, like Atrocitus, how he's just going around and like he impales someone from behind, and he walks around with the person still impaled on his hand, talking casually to Bleez. And Bleez and Atrocitus are great bickering enemies slash frenemies slash friends slash they hate each other, but they work with each other, and it works out nicely. I think the biggest problem with this story is the fact that it has so many stories going on, but it can't pick a story to stay with it. Are we going to deal with Vengeance for All? Are we going to deal with Corona Missing? Or are we going to deal with the rejects of the Red Lanterns? I mean, it feels like once a story is starting to really build, like the Rancor guy, once his story started to build, it kind of fizzled out for another story. It feels almost like this ADD with this comic. It can't stay on one thing at one time, and it goes somewhere else. Uh, if it didn't have that, it stick to one story. I think this comic would be maybe a 3 to 3.5. Uh, but yeah, I'm gonna have to give it a 2.5. Moving on, All-Star Western. All-Star Western is going to get a 5 out of 5. It's a pretty bold statement, but this is a pretty bold comic. It's just great Western storytelling with our good friend Jonah Hex. I like how it ties into Batman in a retroactive kind of way, if that's the right word to say. But it does tie into Batman it in its own way, and it tells really fun stories. It has some good backups to it. Jonah Hex is nicely portrayed. I like his little friendship, partnership, acquaintance. I don't know what would you call it, but with Dr. Arkham, and I like the fact that Nighthawk and Cinnamon are showing up. Uh, really, there's nothing bad to talk about this at all. It is just good. Pick it up. It's one of the best of the 3.99 comics. Also, it's one of the ones worth getting because the backups have been so fun. So, moving on. We're getting towards the end, people. We're getting towards the end. Stormwatch. Stormwatch, I'm going to give a 3 out of 5. The characters are fun in this. The stories are unique in this, and I think this has a good footing on what it's supposed to be. The thing that I think just hurts Stormwatch a little is the dialogue, just a bit. And the fact that while I do love Midnighter and Apollo a lot, I think Martian Manhunter is getting a little shafted with the limelight. I would like to see a little bit more Martian getting out there and getting his hands dirty. But like I said, I do like the characters. All the characters are growing on me very nicely. Stormwatch will definitely appeal to those people that want that very Doctor Who kind of sci-fi aspect to their comics. It's really fun. It's really fun. But yeah, 3 out of 5. My comics are kind of sliding off each other. Okay, so now we are getting into the last stretch, and I think we all know what the last stretch is. It's Batman. So, might as well talk about the man himself, Batman. A Batman comic, 5 out of 5. This has been great storytelling. Scott Snyder has been taking Batman to the limit. Uh, the art has been really good. The dialogue has been really good. There's nothing more I can say other than this is a must-have for the new 52. Must-have. Along with stuff like Swamp Thing and Wonder Woman, it's just really good. Detective Comics. I'm gonna give this a 3 out of 5. Some people will disagree with me on that, but I think the thing that hurts Detective Comics is the fact that it is Detective Comics. If these stories were being told in Batman: The Dark Knight, I think people would be more appeal. It would be more appealing to people because these comics are a little bit more subtle, a little bit more, street level street level stories. It's not a big epic blown overboard kind of story that we've been getting from Detective Comics over the years since its inception. Detective Comics has been one of the biggest of the Batman comics, and it's been a little bit more of a subtle comic. And I think that's what hurts the comic a little. Looking past that, I think the stories have been fun. The art has been really good. I love Tony Daniels' art. And like I said, it's been dealing with different area of the Batman universe. Again, with it being very detective like and very street level like. Uh, I don't care for the backups in this at all. They start off strong, but then they fizzle out a little bit. So yeah, I'm gonna give it a 3. It's fun, it's enjoyable. Just don't expect too much out of it, because it's not like the Detective Comics with Paul Dini of old, that we got from the previous few years, or with Scott Snyder. This is a little bit more subtle. This is telling different kind of stories, which is fun. But yeah, 3 out of 5. Moving on to Batman and Robin. Batman and Robin, I'm going to give a 4 out of 5. The story starts off pretty slow, but it really gets very good later on. Peter Tomasi handles the relationship with Robin and Batman very nicely. The action is good. Nobody was a great villain. The first story arc was just stellar. We're going to go into the second story arc after this one-shot issue that I'm actually holding here with Night of the Owls. And I'm looking forward to it. This has been really good storytelling, and Damian has been very well portrayed here. Next, we're going into Batman: The Dark Knight, which gets a 2 out of 5. I have to say, pound for pound, this has to be the weakest of the new 52. And poor David Finch, because he really tried. Um, the problem with Batman: The Dark Knight is this. One is that it has some good ideas that just never go anywhere. Um, Two is that the dialogue just isn't as strong as it could be. Three is that it has no real hook. Like, for example, Batman is the main Batman title. Detective is a detective-like story title. Um, Batman and Robin's a team-up comic. Dark Knight is, I don't know, it kind of felt like a Brave and the Bold comic for a bit, but it's not really. Um, who knows where this comics is going to go in the next next half year to a year, because the writer Penguin Pain and Prejudice is going on this, and he's done a really good job on that. So this might get better, but for right now, it's getting a 2 out of 5. So many good story things that they could have done that I think they just fumbled on. Nightwing, I'm going to give a 3.5 out of 5. I like its connection to Batman. I like how it's handling Nightwing very well as a character and also as a story. The only thing is I felt as though a lot of the first few issues were the story was sacrificed for the characters. The story was fun, but it was sacrificed more to establish Nightwing and to establish the characters. But on a whole, it's a good story. 3.5 out of 5. Definitely one of the better of the Batmans to pick up. Next, we're going to go to Batgirl, which I am going to give a 3 out of 5. Batgirl is fun. I like how they're incorporating Barbara's mother in this. I like how Barbara is a bit of a different character because she's coming out of a different situation. And I like her back as Batgirl. The one thing I have to say I'm a little disappointed on is very much like Red Lanterns, only not quite as much. is that it doesn't really, it's very sporadic with the stories. The Mirror was a good villain, but since then we really haven't been getting any strong reoccurring villains. Why don't you just use some C-level villains from Batman like Mad Hatter or the Ventriloquist or Killer Croc? Um, some familiarity would help in this a bit. But yeah, 3 out of 5. Catwoman, I'm also going to give it a 3 out of 5. This started off a little controversial, but the comic starts to get better and better. I think, I mean, the art is good. I like the direction that they're doing with Catwoman. I like how they're trying to be bold with Catwoman. The one problem I have with this is this. The mind wipe. I don't like the fact that Catwoman has no memory of Batman's secret identity, and it kind of hurts some of the Batman comics like Heart of Hush, Hush, so on and so forth. And that's my biggest problem with Catwoman. I don't see why they got rid of her knowledge of Batman's identity. Besides that, it's a pretty good comic. It's not going to be for everyone, but I think Catwoman fans will enjoy it. Again, we're coming up to the last four. Batwing, I'm going to give a 4.5 out of 5 stars. Pretty bold, but it's definitely worth it. A lot of people are saying, oh, Batwing, he's just going to be the black Batman. Well, Batwing has been some really good storytelling. He's a great character. And you know what I like about this? Is Judd Winnick, and this is going to come off as interesting. Judd Winnick is one of those writers you either like him or you hate him. He's kind of a hit and miss sometimes. When he does good, he does good. When he does bad, he does bad. The one thing about Batwing is I feel as though he doesn't have the constraints of other comics, so he can kind of go free range, and he goes free range, and it's really fun. Batwing is a fun character that is, he has a good universe set up. And I really do like the armor. I really do like the story direction, and the art has been good throughout all the issues. Um, Definitely something worth picking up, and some of the better of the Batman comics from the New 52. A lot of people weren't expecting. A lot of people were going to write this comic off, but it has really been good. Definitely something worth picking up. If you can't get the issues, get it in trade because it is good. Batwoman. The Batwoman, I'm going to hold it at a 3 out of 5. The character stuff is good in this. The art is good in this, and the tone with it being kind of a Legend of the Dark Knights, almost supernatural kind of comic for Batman universe is good. And I do like Batwoman as a character. The problem with this is I feel as though the structure of the story is just a little too choppy. Little too choppy, and it's a bit of a slow comic. Besides that, 3 out of 5. It's enjoyable. Really enjoyable. Last two, Red Hood and the Outlaws. A lot of people will probably disagree with this rating, but I'm going to give Red Hood and the Outlaws a 3.5 out of 5. I've been enjoying this series. I think the hugest problem with this series is the first issue should not have been the first issue. I believe it was issue number 6 where they did the backstory of Red Hood and Starfire. That should have been the first issue. And I think people would be welcoming this comic a bit more. I don't know what it is about this comic that attracts me so much. Maybe it's because Jason Todd is one of my favorite characters in comics. Yes, I said that. I love Jason Todd. Please, I'm not going to go and have a period fest because he got killed and brought back. It's comic books. People die all the time, and sorry if I offend anyone saying that, but really, he comes back. Everyone dies and comes back in comics. I mean, look at Phoenix. She comes back every other weekend. But the thing is I think this is just a fun adventure comic, and the personalities between the three, Red Hood, Arsenal, and Starfire, actually really blend well together. I think the only thing that I don't care about is I really don't care about the all cast and the untitled. They're okay, but I really don't feel them that much. 3.5. Red Hood and the Outlaws started off kind of ooh, but later turned out to be pretty good. And lastly, we have Birds of Prey. Birds of Prey, I'm also going to give a 3.5 out of 5. This comic has kind of been like the hidden comic that a lot of people really haven't been paying attention to. But this has really done a good job at dealing with the Birds of Prey team. With the exception of Poison Ivy, the team has been really good. Starlin, um, Black Canary, Katana, Batgirl, they all been fun. Again, Poison Ivy's kind of a hit and a miss. I don't think Poison Ivy's going to stay on the team long. Batgirl's probably going to take her position. But it has been really fun storytelling, some pretty good action. It's been really fun. Uh, and that's the key word. Like a lot of the comics out there, fun is the key word. Pick it up. 3.5. So, with that said, those are the grades for the New 52, but what are my top 5 of the New 52? What do I recommend as the must-gets of the New 52? Well, give me one moment and I will tell you. Okay, picking out the 5 best comics from the New 52 is a no easy task. There's a lot of comics out there that are great. However, if I had to say what the 5 best for the New 52 were, it would be these 5 titles. Coming in at number 5 would be All-Star Western. Again, this title has surprised me. It has been great writing, great art. It just has been great. Whether you're a Western fan or not, it's still something that you should, take a look into because it's just really good material. All-Star Western, number 5 on my top 5 of the New 52. Coming in at number 4 is The Flash. Flash just blew me away on how well the story was told and how good the pacing was for the storytelling. Flash is an enjoyable character, has great art, and the new look for each villain is great. Definitely a must-have. Coming in at number 3 is Wonder Woman. Just like the Flash, the Wonder Woman story is dynamic. The new take on the Greek mythology and how Wonder Woman ties into it, and how the Amazons tie into it. How Wonder Woman is being portrayed with the utmost respect. It really just makes me love this comic. Um, and some great action scenes. It's a long epic and it pulls it off pretty well. Next is coming at number 2 is Swamp Thing. This has been just blew me away of how good this was. I didn't think Swamp Thing was going to be anything that I was going to pick up, but it really has held its own and it's held its own very well. Um, Great horror story, great internal dialogue, and some really disturbing art. But it is just awesome. Pick up Swamp Thing. And number 1, and this should be no surprise because it deserves to be number 1, is Batman issue. Well, not issue, but Batman in general. Batman is a fantastic series of the New 52. Great storytelling, great characterization, great action. Takes Batman in a bold new direction without besmirching Batman at all. It really is great stuff. Worth picking up. So those are my grades of the New 52 thus far and my top 5 of the New 52. I hope you enjoyed this video. And based on the grades, you can choose which comics you want to pick up. I recommend to at least try out these 5 because these 5 have been good. And I do definitely recommend, although it's not in my top 5, I do recommend people take a look at Justice League. There's a bunch of other comics, and you can use your own best judgment when it comes down to my rating system on what to pick up. Is it worth picking up a comic if it's a 3 out of 5? Is it 3.5 worth picking up? Is it only 4.0s and higher that you'd want to pick up? It's up to you. But if you get those comics now while you can, because the number 1s are getting harder to find. Unless you digitally buy them, then they're easy to get, or you can get them in trade. It's up to you. But there is my DC New 52 grading list. This is Andrew saying peace out for now.